If you're familiar with Japan or sports, you've probably heard of sumo wrestling, but I'm willing to bet you've never heard of spider wrestling. That's right, spider wrestling. In Japan, and unfortunately in some parts of America, a large spider species called the Jorogumo spider, or Joro spider, live and thrive. These spiders can grow quite large, with an abdomen the size of a ping pong ball, and are usually colored black and bright yellow. They live in forests and towns, weaving large webs and grouping up in horrifying bunches. Thankfully, Joro spiders are harmless to humans, as they are rarely known to bite, and if they do bite, the venom is not deadly. They sure do look scary though. Every year in the summer, Shimanto City citizens and youngsters gather their pet Joro spiders, hand them over to Buddhist priests, and have them compete in Arachnid Wrestlemania. This wrestling looks intense, but I believe it's mostly harmless. No spiders I saw were killed during this tournament. The objective was to have one spider knock the other off the branch. The spiders would be encouraged towards each other and prodded by the local priest, but sometimes they refused to fight and simply coexisted with the enemy spider. Other times they would flail and grapple each other with their legs, using webs to support themselves. People watching the spectacle had their own spiders ready to participate. Some were in storage containers, whereas others simply had their spiders stored on a branch. I was a little freaked out by that, standing in a crowd of people holding spider-infested branches right out in the open. It was surreal. Japan is famous and infamous for its bug fighting competitions. Beetle battles are also common, where the beetles use their impressive horns to yeet the opposing bug or beetle off a branch. Other bug fighting competitions are cruel, where they have insects or arachnids fight to the death, but I think these tournaments are not usually encouraged. An interesting and surreal event. I see enough Jorogumo spiders while hiking and exploring forests that I'm not overly fond of them. I'm glad to know that despite their fearsome appearance, they're harmless. The fruits of Yosakoi training have bloomed. I danced in the first major festival of the year, the Shimanto Citizens Festival. Our team gathered in our Yosakoi costumes, I got a little bit of war makeup, and after waiting around in the heat, we began the parade. It was hot. After 2 dances, my uniform was soaked with sweat. When I say soaked, I mean just tsunami levels drenched. Thankfully, the mixture of the dancing, the loud music, and the crowds filled me with adrenaline and determination, and that kept fatigue at bay. This year, our uniforms are inspired by the sunrise on Areno Beach, and the light rays shining through the early morning mist. I do like this year's style, although I'm a sucker for blue, so I think I like last year's uniforms a little bit better. After we competed our last dance, the parade continued. I caught some of the Mikoshi dancers carrying shrines, swaying and chanting back and forth through the streets. It's so fascinating to me, the concept of people dancing through the streets with Shinto gods on their shoulders. I think parades back in Canada need some Mikoshi shrines for sure. Just a few short weeks later, I grabbed a bus to Kochi City for the gauntlet that is Yosakoi Matsuri, a massive annual Yosakoi festival with dozens and dozens of teams dancing and competing throughout Kochi City. One of my friends described it as the marathon of Yosakoi dancing, and they're not wrong. It's a grind, 2 10-hour days of walking, waiting, riding a bus, and dancing in front of massive crowds. You're tired, hungry, constantly thirsty, you have to go to the bathroom, but you're holding it, you're hot, sweaty, and when the first day ends, you wake up the next day knowing you have to do it all again. But it's fun, right? It is fun. There is an enjoyment to perform something you practiced hard in front of a cheering crowd. The blaring, loud music, the cool costume you get to wear, the rhythm of the dance itself. Even though your body is in survival mode, where you mostly care about water, food, and bathrooms, morbidly, there's something appealing about that too. It's the same sort of feeling I get when running a marathon or doing a hard hike. Suddenly, the other stressors of my life fade into the background and I have to focus on the present moment, my basic needs, and making it through in the present challenge. Yosakoi was a great experience this year, and I look forward to the little festivals and dances throughout the fall. I got to eat somen noodles the summer way in Japan for the first time, and I was astounded by how cool the event was. At a small local community center with a swimming hole, a bamboo water slide had been constructed. But this wasn't for irrigating crops. Oh no! The purpose of this slide was to irrigate water jelly packages and fresh somen noodles into the waiting chopsticks of hungry children, exhausted parents, and little old me. Before we gorged ourselves on the slippery water slide, we made our own cutlery for the event. Taking bamboo logs, we sawed them at their joints and made bamboo bowls. It amazed me how circular the inside of bamboo is. After this, we took bamboo sticks and shaved them down to make our very own chopsticks. As always, watching children with knives is fascinating. After swimming, relaxing in the shade, and being attacked by children with water guns, at last it was time for me to feast on somen. Japanese grandmothers lined up at the top of the somen slide and first dropped some jelly and then noodle water. Our bamboo bowls were filled with soy sauce, wasabi, and green onions, and we would catch the stream of noodles and throw them in our bowl sauce. The children were ferocious and starving, and since they positioned ahead of me on the slide, they caught most of the initial wave of noodles. Some were polite and used their chopsticks, but unfortunately, others threw caution to the wind and scooped noodles with their fingers and their elbows. Soon the children had been placated, and more noodles came my way. It was impossible to catch them all, but I caught a significant amount, and their taste was satisfying when dipped in the sauce. They were very plain and soft. They had the consistency of a mushy wet cracker, but they were salty and meaty when dipped in the sauce. While a cool way to eat noodles, my complaint would be that they are quite watery, and adding them to your sauce dilutes the salt flavor quite a bit. It was still a tasty, filling meal. Rinsing our bowls, we enjoyed eating some shaved ice and sitting in the shade. The sun was blazing hot, and the ice was much appreciated. It was a beautiful event, a beautiful location, and a fascinating way to eat noodles on a hot summer's day. Something unique to Japan for sure, although I think the novelty of the noodle slide is what makes it special. The noodles themselves were no culinary masterpiece. I took an impromptu trip to Osaka and spent the night. It was my first time driving across Tokushima onto the main island of Japan. I must say, Tokushima viewed from the highway is stunning. It's miles and miles of a scenic mountainscape valley with a sleepy river running and winding down it. Thousands of houses built along the valley floor. It's gorgeous. I stopped at the Naruto to see the whirlpools, and although I went at the best time of day to see them, unfortunately the current didn't cooperate and no whirlpools formed. It was still an insanely gorgeous stretch of ocean and a bridge, and I took plenty of pictures. Driving in Osaka itself was hectic. Some traffic accidents caused massive delays on the highway. To make matters worse, I accidentally stayed at a Love Hotel downtown Osaka. Thankfully, it was very PG. I didn't even know it was a Love Hotel until I came back at night, and it was lit up like a neighbor who hadn't taken down his Christmas lights. Before I went to bed, I also found some fascinating massage equipment in my room. The instructions said it was good for the shoulders and lower back, and I am completely and utterly convinced that's entirely what people use it for. I walked from my hotel and got some Osaka-style okonomiyaki. Sorry, Hiroshima, after trying the two, I can say with certainty, Osaka does it better. From there, I went to a massive shopping district, took the escalator to the 7th floor, and rode a massive Ferris wheel. It had a stellar view of the city at night. My phone just doesn't do it justice. I like Osaka as a city, but next time I'd rather fly there, and maybe just stay at a regular hotel. Koban region hosted its Leavers brunch in Shimanto town. It was a lovely time. We chatted with fellow Jets, ate wagashi, drank tea and listened to the wind chimes in a oshari traditional Japanese cafe. As always, it's sad to see people head out on their next adventure, but I wish them well. In scary, potentially life-ending news, an earthquake on August 8th off the coast of Saitama was revealed to be a Nankai Trough earthquake. If you've followed this channel for a while, or have lived in Japan for any length of time, you may be familiar with the boogeyman of the Nankai, a series of fault lines off the coast of Japan that consistently cause massive earthquakes and tsunamis every couple hundred years. Japan is due for its next Nankai anytime, within the next 30 years, and sure enough, one of the Nankai fault lines quaked. This is scary because in the past, the Nankai faults tend to rupture together, one earthquake triggering another in a series of massive earthquakes. In the past, Japan experienced an event where all the Nankai troughs erupted, and as a cherry on top, Mount Fuji erupted too. Did I also mention these earthquakes caused mega 30-meter tsunamis that swamped the Japanese coastline? New 2024 jets arrived a day before this mega earthquake scare for a rough introduction to Japan. While the event of another earthquake is unlikely, its chance of occurring is still higher than normal, because this is the Nankai, and it should be taken seriously. Kochi A-Jet had to postpone our river float as a disaster scenario with new jets floating on a river connected to the ocean with little evacuation options is a nightmare I don't want to entertain. Also, I used my platform to spread earthquake safety information and preparation material as far as I could. Being prepared and having supplies in the event of a disaster is the best thing to do to combat fear. Since many jets may have felt isolated, lonely, and scared by this news, my A-Jet partner and I organized an online gaming night for people to play and relax with their fellow jets, and hopefully not feel so alone. For a long time, I felt like my work on A-Jet was inconsequential, and that I was pretending to be a leader in a make-believe pseudo-political system. A-Jet was just a group of people who supposedly represented the jet community, ran fun outdoor events, and made a couple Facebook posts. I still believe A-Jet is that, but I realized by postponing the river float that our position in emergency becomes less whimsical and our decisions become more political and important. The decision to float or not to float had real stakes. If we chose to selfishly and carelessly push the float forward, regardless of safety, we could have put people's lives at risk. Much like a real political situation, some people supported our decision while others did not, although it appears the majority were in favor of our decision. It's weird to experience something like that in the vacuum of the jet community. I later learned that the real-life local Japanese government also postponed some festivals and events that would be held on the beach for similar earthquake concerns, and it made me feel better. The wise thing in my mind was to put safety first, and I'm relieved that the Japanese government agrees. Wow, a crazy month filled with dancing marathons, noodle slurping, spider wrestling, country-destroying earthquakes, and a real-life political drama with my A-Jet team at the forefront. What will the next month have in store? Let's wait and see. But that's all for now. Take care and be bold.